We have got, I would argue, probably Africa's most successful mine builder. He may disagree. I'm going to ask him how does he stay humble, because he could have been super arrogant by now. And my statement that he's probably Africa's most successful mine builder of a generation, certainly Southern Africa, is what I hear from other people. This is what happens if you make people money, and you go and they follow you, and you make them money again, and they follow you, and you make them money again. Then at some stage, you become Heye Daun. So, Mr. Daun, come on. Talk to us, and you know I've got some snotty questions at the end. Huh? You expect them. That will work, yeah. But you can't have my coffee, eh?
All right. Thanks, Bernard. Wow, you make me blush. I must say, I have to pinch myself because I remember, I don't want to make you look old, but when I was at university, Bernard created and made Harmony, and I used to look up to him. Now I share the stage with you, so amazing. Thank you. I also thank you for this event. I think it's exceptional. It's like proudly South African because honest conversation, it's authentic, the government is there, nobody gets offended, you know, I really think it's amazing, so thank you very much. Obviously, I'm an adopted South African, I'm a born Namibian, I've been fortunate to have had some good success in Namibia, even though I'm not a mine builder. I create dreams and I turn them into reality, but building mines, I generally leave that to other people to do, but I've identified and sort of brought forward some opportunities which have become some significant mines. So the latest incarnation is this company, Koryx Copper, which is a copper development company in Namibia, which I took over about a year ago, took over management control. It has a long history, it's a great asset, it's got a great pedigree, but also a checkered history, and it fell into the wrong hands, and it was a broken company. And I had just sold another Namibian company, gold company called Osino, and I got involved here, and basically Koryx therefore represents a turnaround situation where we acquired it, we bringing in the right people, have brought in the right people, we've raised risk capital to do all the technical work, and basically do what we can to bring this project to fruition. I think and I hope that this might become my biggest success just because we're fortunate in that this project, we didn't find it by the way, we're just turning it into something. But it's a very large project, large copper project, big open pit. If we get right what we plan to do, this could be probably the second biggest mine ever built in Namibia. Obviously South Africa is a different kettle of fish, but in Namibia it's relatively easy to be a sort of a big shark in a small pond. It's very motivating because it's easy to make a difference and so forth. So that's Koryx. I mentioned I've been fortunate, I've had some success. I've done 3 deals since 2015. I'm a mining engineer originally. Started doing this game for the last 15 years. Initially, was a co-founder of a company called Koryx Gold, which identified a project, advanced it, de-risked it, sold it to B2Gold. They built an excellent mine, which is actually today Namibia's biggest taxpayer. And the next one I did, which is called Osino, we did, again, a public company. My model is always public companies, so everything's transparent. And that's why you see me on LinkedIn, because I have to promote, because I've got to get the share price up. The next one was Osino, where we made a discovery, built a company from nothing, that was me, raised about 100 million US over 8 years or 7, 8 years, multiple technical studies, and we sold it last year to a Chinese large Chinese listed company for just under $400 million if you include the break fees and reverse break fees and all the other stuff. So that was nice. All my shareholders had money in their pockets. I had some money in my pocket, etc. And I love Namibia. I love this game. I love my job. And so that's how Koryx came about. And we said, well, maybe we can do it again. And we looked for an asset that had scale, that wasn't a commodity, that has good macro fundamentals, which is copper, and is suitable for the public market model, which is, you know, everybody talks about critical metals and rare earths, etc. It's hard to list those things, but gold and copper is geared for stock exchanges. So, and it was a beautiful situation, which I love, because it was a turnaround story. It was in the wrong hands. It was broken. You know, the work hadn't been done properly. People had sat on it for years, and so that's when we came in, and we make it look easy. Because what we do is actually quite easy. We just very systematic, very diligent, cross the T's and dot the I's. Because of the track record, we're able to raise money and do this properly. And, for me, it's almost a mechanical process. I can see the outcome in 2 or 3 years already. All right, we've got a credible team. It's obviously not just me. I'm just the facilitator and the driver and the sort of strategy setter and the fundraiser. But I have excellent people around me that have worked together for many years. And also having just done this with a gold project in Namibia, meaning identified, acquired, advanced, de-risked, permitted, and divested, all our knowledge is very recent, and we are perfectly positioned. This team is perfectly positioned to turn this into another success. So sometimes I can't believe that we found ourselves with this opportunity. I heard actually Alphamin gets mentioned a lot here, DRA. So Trevor Farber, he's our COO. I employed him last year. He built BC, and that team had a lot of success there. So basically, surround yourself with good people and give them direction and give them the money, and the rest almost sort of takes care of itself. We're still grossly undervalued, so we've barely come out of the shadows. Even though we've had a good performance, when we took over this company, it had a market cap of $5 million. It's got a market cap of 70 now. Of that, about 20, 25 is capital that we raised last year, talking Canadian dollars always. And we've already done well. I mean, it's a very clean structure. We've got excellent institutional shareholders, a lot of retail interests, a lot of people, friends, family, brothers, sisters, they're all invested in this company. But we've barely begun. So I think there's a lot of leg room here, a lot of room to grow, rather. Don't have to say too much about Namibia. Sorry, by the way, I'm rushing through this because I've been told that I should leave some time for discussion afterwards. So that's why I'll just give you some sound bites. Namibia is obviously, I'm partial to Namibia. It's where I was born. I know that place. It's very stable. Maybe just to say, we heard a lot about like regulators and some of the South African regulators earlier. What makes Namibia different is probably 5-7 years ago under the former president, Hage Daun, they elected to go for pragmatism rather than ideology. They appointed a couple of key people, including the Minister of Finance, Minister of Mines, Central Bank Governor, etc. And that just made a huge difference. I tell you, I'm learning time and time again the difference that individuals make. And so that's been the case in Namibia. So it's not perfect. At the moment, we've got a new president, new Minister of Mines, and there's some uncertainties, some silly things have been said. But generally speaking, in my experience in Namibia, regulators sometimes say the wrong things, but they usually end up doing the right things. And I have no doubt it's going to be like that in the future. So it's very predictable. Also, what's unique there is the population is very supportive of mining. In Namibia, it's all about jobs. We need socioeconomic upliftment. People need jobs. And so that's why mining projects need to be developed, obviously in a responsible fashion. But society supports mining, so that's hugely helpful in permitting and advancing projects. So the Heye project has been well known. It's been in the textbooks forever. Rio Tinto discovered it. It's a big open pit. It's always thought to be too low grade. It's moderate to low grade. It's had limited drilling. It's had haphazard. Actually, let me not say that. It's had good technical work done on it, but in a stop-start, haphazard kind of fashion. And then it fell into the wrong hands, like a little junior that had no money and no plan, really. And that's really what we're changing now. So we're coming in, we've got a plan, we've got the right people, raised enough money to do this properly.
Is this where you're going to tell us about that 500 meters at...
Oh, yes.
Come
Yeah.
back. Tell us, where's that hole of yours?
I don't know if I can point for it with this, but it's somewhere... Okay, it's basically on that side of the screen between the two yellow arrows. What you need to understand, this is a porphyry. I'm not going to hit you over the head with too much geology. This is very different to Zambia. Zambia is sedimentary copper. It means it's layers, generally high grade, generally relatively easy to mine, and that's why you can have like 2, 3, 4, even 10% copper, like Ivanhoe and those. A porphyry is more a volcanic product. This you have to compare with what's happening in the Andes in South America. These things are generally very large, but quite low grade. And that's why our grade at the moment is 0.35%. But the significance of that hole, 500 meters of continuous mineralization, that's stunning. That's incredible. I'm talking billions, not millions, billions of tons of material. We're talking long life, very stable operation. A project like this is geared for the big players. It's far too big for a junior. We can't develop this. We can't build this mine. We can get it ready to the shovel-ready stage. That's our strategy. But this is a project that's going to end up producing 80 to 100,000 tons of copper per year. I mean, the Friedland project, that's a $15 billion company, they produce 300,000, only 3 times as much. So this is a really big project that in our ownership now is getting the right sizing and optimizing that it needed all along. Of course, what's also changed, let me say that, copper prices have doubled in the last 5 years or 10 years. So the macro environment is much better than it used to be, and that's why it's possible now to bring projects like this to the fore. All right, so it's got an ideal location. That means a lot because for projects like these, power and water, it's very important. So it's very well located just north of the Orange River. It's sort of 10 kilometers north of the Orange River near Indaba. If any of you have traveled to Namibia by road, you just cross the border, 20 kilometers further, you look right, sort of 10 kilometers in there, that's where it is. So very well located. That's what it looks like. It's extremely rugged, which makes it difficult from a drilling perspective. It's one of the reasons it hasn't been drilled properly, because we literally have to drag man-portable drill rigs up there with winches, etc. It's a huge process. So drilling is our biggest constraint at the moment. We've got enough money, we know what to do, but we've got to get the drill holes in there, because the more you drill it, generally speaking, the better it will get. That's really what we're doing. Metallurgical work is progressing very well. We're working with the exceptional DRA. I must give DRA a plug here. It's really a brilliant company, especially in copper concentrate flotation, which is the processing route that we're electing over here. So even when I go around Canada and other places, I keep on meeting South African engineers, and I really think you should pat yourselves on the back and say we have such a pool of excellent engineering talent in South Africa. It's just a pleasure to work with quality people. All right, so in terms of strategy, I said right size and optimize. We want to make it a bit bigger and improve the grade a bit. And then, of course, de-risk and permit. Answer all the questions, water, power, roads, housing. Going to answer all the questions and create a shovel-ready project. And then, obviously, it will need to be financed and built. And at that point, we will introduce the appropriate strategic partners. And we've done that before. We've sold companies to Western groups. We've sold companies to a Chinese group. So I think we have a lot of experience doing this sort of thing. Another thing that where we're really adding value is just by going back to basics and giving it the processing route that it needs. The previous operators had done studies that weren't really credible, and so a lot of this is really about rebuilding credibility. So in terms of timeline, obviously exploration, study, definitive studies, financing, and then implementation. I would say we're about halfway through. We're sort of in the middle of the study phase. This exploration is done. Of course, we're still doing drilling, but we don't have to find it anymore. We just have to make it better. At the end of the study phase, typically you have detailed feasibility studies and then permitting, etc. I would imagine that we need another 2 to 3 years to get this project fully permitted, fully identified, etc. And I think then it's going to get interesting. Not going to tell you all about responsible mining, just my political statement for the day. I can't stand that term ESG. Sorry that I know, I've heard it, sorry Bernard, I've heard it so much over here, and I'll tell you why. It's such an American import. Like South Africa knew about sustainability 20 years ago. In the US, they had never even heard about it, neither in Canada. Now they invent ESG and they're telling us about ESG. And that term is so politicized because of democratic, republican culture wars. So I think much simpler, I call it responsible mining. I think Neil from DRD, I can't say it any better than he did. That's what we aspire to, doing the right thing, socioeconomic upliftment, but proper reporting according to international codes, etc. So, sorry, I slaughtered that a bit, but we've got our hearts in the right place. Social license to operate is good business in Namibia, and we've done that before, and we will do that again. Valuation, obviously lowly valued. Nobody knows this company relative to the size of the deposit and the economic opportunity. Our share price is still very low. That's why I'm telling you this, and I would like you to buy these shares. And in summary, so I think I never did a CFA, but I tried. And I learned when you, as an investor, when you look at junior companies, or any companies for that matter, there are 5 things that you need to analyze. The first one is the quality of leadership and the management team. The second one is the quality of the asset. In our case, also the quality of the jurisdiction. Then, of course, the financial backing that this company has. I think one of the biggest risks you have in investing in junior mining companies is if they run out of money, company hits the wall, you lose all your money. So the strength of the financial backing is very important. And where's the growth? How is this thing going to grow? Lastly, what does it help if all the 4 first ones are perfect, but it has already repriced? So valuation is obviously a key aspect. I think on all of these ratings, leadership management, we've got a track record. We've done it many times before. We're just doing it again. So I think we can tick that. We are aligned, by the way. So I'm a big buyer of shares actively in the market, etc. So management is aligned. The asset is there. It's large. It has scale. It has no fatal flaws. It's got a predictable timeline to permitting and realization. Yes, it's a little bit low grade, but the copper price partially makes up for it, and also the location in Namibia, low-cost environment, etc. And then, I see my time is up. And that's it, sorry.
No, finish.
Okay. So that's it. I think on all those metrics, we stack up quite well. Company is still lowly valued, and I think it's a fantastic investment opportunity for anyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne. Are you comfortable standing?
Whatever you want.
Yeah. So you are a mining engineer.
Yes, I am.
That's obvious, because you said 5 key points and then you make 6 points. It's obvious that you're a mining engineer.
That's 6, you're right.
Despite your proven skills in other areas, counting is not your thing. There's a question, and I want to start there because that's going to force you to talk a little bit about your journey. I can't give you the name, it's anonymous. You live in South Africa, you trained in South Africa, you got your start here, and then the second part of the question we'll get to, why not do it again in South Africa? But talk a little bit about, so you grew up in South Africa, studied at Wits?
No, I grew up in Namibia.
Namibia.
I was born there, I finished matric there, and then I got a bursary from Rossing to study mining engineering. It was pure chance. I took it because I had a strict father, and I knew that either I can take bursary money or I can be under my father's gun. So that's how I ended up in mining.
I hope my son is listening. You see, this is why we are like we are as fathers.
And so I studied mining engineering at Wits, and it ended up, I worked at Kloof actually. I thought, what the hell have I done?
Oh, no, I don't blame you.
So it didn't last that long, got my blasting ticket, mining certificate, etc. Eventually went back to Namibia. And then I ended up working for Rossing for 4 years, Anglo in West Africa, another 4 years. Spent a bit of time in banking and fund management, about 2 or 3 years, just enough to know what questions to ask. And then I always wanted to become independent and sort of, I like the corporate world. The corporate world taught me just about everything I know, but I just didn't like the fact that you're a prisoner, you don't really have control over the outcome, etc. I wanted to become independent, and I just didn't think it was possible in mining because it requires so much capital. So I did an MBA, fiddled around again, and eventually an opportunity arose in Namibia, which was to acquire that gold project. I met the right people, by the way. Meeting the right people is key. So I met some incredibly inspiring people. One of them is someone you know very well, Frank Kilborn, who's a very successful South African mining entrepreneur. And I became his mining jockey, and he set me free, basically. He gave me credibility and grey hairs, which I didn't have then, his grey hairs and his wisdom. And he gave me, I could brag with his balance sheet, so I could go to Canada and pretend like I had something, and sort of one thing after the other, and here I am.
Tell me, did you have anything to do with Otjikoto?
Yes, so...
Remember, there's another side to the story, so tell your version, and then I'll make my confession.
Otjikoto is great, because Otjikoto is it's a gold mine in Namibia now. It's the one that I told you, the biggest taxpayer in Namibia. Believe it or not. More than Z.B.S. Z.B.S. always used to be the biggest taxpayer because of the diamond downturn. That mine is now the biggest taxpayer in Namibia. And my claim to fame is that I recognized its potential. In 2008, it was owned by a small junior called Teal. They drilled it. They also had some assets in the copper belt, which they wanted to focus on, and they just didn't know what they had. I had just come back from West Africa knowing open pit gold mining, and I looked at it and I realized with some money and some drilling and some drive, maybe this can be turned into something. So we did that. We started a company, we acquired it, we drilled it, and 2 years later we sold it to B2 Gold, who built that mine. And so, yeah, that's...
We won't tell my version of the story because...
Oh, no, there is one. Can I tell it quickly? Bernard, so how many...
No.
Oh, okay.
No, yeah. Okay. No, we're here to embarrass you.
Okay,
let's stick with the script. There's a clear script here. The second part of that question was, why not do it again in South Africa? Now, I would ask you to talk to both sides. The one is the phenomenal opportunities in Namibia. The other one is the challenges could you do what you're doing in Namibia in South Africa if there were similar opportunities? Can I phrase the question like that?
Yeah, you know what? There's perception and reality. So I love living in South Africa. I think it's a fantastic place. I think the reality of South Africa is way better than the credit the rest of the world gives us. But the perception is there, whether we like it or not. And I realized when I first started going to Canada to raise money, I developed an eye for what sells. You don't have to be in mining to know what sells. You have to be very conscious of what sells. And unfortunately, the reality is South Africa does not sell very well. And so if I had tried to go around to raise money on a South African exploration asset, it would have been very difficult. So I think the technical opportunities in South Africa are way better than the ones in Namibia. But, I mean, you can just look at Errol with Orion. I think he's done a superb job doing exactly what I'm doing, which is de-risking, advancing, etc. But it's been very difficult for him. And I think a significant part of that is because he's in South Africa. It's because of the negative perception. For me, obviously, having those Namibian roots and the gold mining, you know, plus Namibia has great perception. And so it made sense for me. Obviously, I'm not a masochist. I'll go where the grass is green in terms of business. But yeah, I do think there are lots of opportunities in South Africa, but the perception needs to be changed.
So a lot of my positive opinions about Namibia is probably following you on LinkedIn. I mean, you're very openly sharing Namibian success stories, Namibian discoveries, and so on. Do you want to dwell a little bit on what else is happening in Namibia? And I know you don't really want all these people to come there and compete with you, but I mean, if you were prepared to brag a little bit about what's going right in Namibia, from oil discoveries to lithium deposits to share with us.
Quite a few things. I think one thing for me, certainly when I started, there was very little competition. That was to my benefit. So very few people were doing what I was doing, had access to capital, were able to secure assets and take them forward. So that was, and still it's like that. There's actually, it's not like South Africa doesn't have that much competition, but much more. But would I be successful doing this in Europe or in the US? Probably never ever. So that's a big one. The other one is, I mentioned it earlier, the pragmatism versus ideology. So I think the rule making, like for example, the tax code or the mining code. Namibia became independent in 1990. They developed a mining code once, and it stayed like that. The only change they ever made was they introduced royalties. And it didn't go down well with industry, so industry got together with government, and government said, okay, we'll make it tax deductible. Where else in the world? Like when I tell Canadians that, they can't believe it. So now there's some ructions, they're talking about free carries and other things, so it's always that. But I think, I'm a big proponent of BE. I was going to mention, Namibia never introduced BE to the same extent as South Africa did. I think BE was necessary, and you know, I'm not here to lecture on transformation, etc. But I think looking at the successful junior mining companies, coal mining companies and others that were created in South Africa, I still think BE in South Africa was very, very successful and necessary. But the rule making and the rule books changing and made it very complicated for investors, very, very unpredictable, difficult, very difficult to explain to foreigners. Namibia doesn't have that, so Namibia is just much simpler, therefore easier to sell.
But if you send the golfer in, even Donald Trump gets the message.
He does. I think.
Sorry, let's not go there. I'm not qualified to go there. I'm stepping out of that landmine. There's a question which I don't understand. Perhaps you do. How different will this project be from the Chudi project?
Very different. So Chudi is.
Yeah, please tell us what is Chudi.
Chudi was a small company called Weatherly, AIM listed. They built a mine. So geologically it's different because Chudi was quite stringy and hard, not so predictable, small ore bodies, and their processing route was what they call SXEW. It's a hydrometallurgical process, somewhat more complicated. In our case, it's a porphyry, which means it's just this big blob of continuous low-grade mineralization. So low geological risk, and now we are just also introducing low processing risk because we're setting it up to produce a concentrate only. So it's crushing, milling, flotation, very simple, done many times before. And the third, most important difference is that Chudi is small, we are massive. So that has other benefits.
So soon, somewhere in the next 2-3 years, you're bringing in a big partner by your own sort of game plan. And then what?
The mine needs to be built. We'll do what's necessary to get this mine built. But I think it's, I've been on record many times publicly of saying this. I'm not ashamed to say that I don't think that junior explorers, we're not even a junior miner. They're junior miners, many junior miners here. We're a junior explorer, a junior developer. Companies like ours, even though our technical process is the same as a major, I'm very proud of what our team is doing, but we don't have the financial capability and the institutional memory, etc. Companies like ours shouldn't build big mines. I think big mines should be built by real mining companies that have track record and other mines and. And that's why, especially for big projects, there are very significant risks in building those mines, and that's why I think it's better to let go at the right time. Put your ego in the pocket, sell the company, or find some other strategic structure under which you can get the project financed and built and operated.
But now, if you truly were at varsity when I was already screwing up, you're about 29 now. So what are you doing with the rest of your life?
No, actually, I'm 52 now. 53, so a couple of days ago.
But you've got, obviously, is this your final one? There's never a final one?
I love doing what I'm doing. I really hope, I'm going to try very hard to make this my biggest one, because if I sold the first one for 180, the second one for 400, say. So I think this...
And these are US dollars?
Canadian, US, whatever.
A dollar is still a dollar, okay.
Yes. So I think this has the potential from a resource perspective, etc., to be a significant company. So that's my vision. I want to achieve that. But I like smaller companies. I like the hustle and bustle. I like the hustling. In fact, I'm just setting up a new, you asked, I like that question, you asked Sammy about mentorship and guidance. So I've just gotten together with a young Namibian explorer that wants to do something like Osino, get going again. I coached him, mentored him, and then there was an opportunity now putting some assets in, etc. So I like playing the game. So I think I'll do more, but in a different role, maybe more as an investor, less as the front man. So far, I've always been the front man, but it's very time consuming. You've got to travel, etc., etc. I want to do less of that, but still stay in the business.
I promise you guys, we're going to showcase some people who, when the rest said, this is hard and difficult, got off their asses and did it. And again, and again. It's fantastic to be the old fart in the room and talk about young heroes. It's phenomenal stuff. Thank you for sharing your story so authentically and sincerely.
Thank you. Coming from you, I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Can we have you back next year?
All right.
Cheers.
Thank you.